Okay, great. Welcome back once again, and I hope you are as excited as we are for the third and final episode for today's show on augmenting life. Our first guest in this episode is Humayun Sheikh, CEO and founder of Fetch.ai. Humayun is passionate about the future of decentralized digital economy and an active advocate for artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions for everyone. He will be talking about leveraging AI and layer 2 blockchain solutions. So I invite you to go to that stage and enjoy this wonderful talk.
Hey everybody, thank you for the invite here. Really pleased to be here. Today I'll be talking to you about leveraging AI, which is in our case multi-agent systems and layer 2 blockchain solutions, which you might not have heard too much about. But we are saying we want to democratize AI. So I will take you through that. But it's a pleasure to be here, and I will start the presentation. So the first thing, I'll just give you an overview of what Fetch AI is. My name is Humayun Sheikh. I'm CEO and founder of a company called Fetch AI. Just to perhaps do an introduction for myself, my background is in technology. I was part of DeepMind, which sold to Google 7 years ago, and after that I started Fetch AI. So Fetch AI overview first. What is AI based on agents? Then we just do a quick introduction for that and why we want to add the whole blockchain into this. Then, really, what the objective here is to build the autonomy of things. Because if we are talking about AI and we're talking about bringing artificial intelligence and machine learning, a very key part is for it to bring autonomy and autonomy to our lives and making our lives easier. So we're going to talk about autonomy of things. Then some use cases, perhaps for some of you, DeFi agents, which might not be too relevant, is a decentralized finance. So how you can use agents in finance. And then you can also look at collective learning on how we can build these models in a collective and more democratized manner. So taking you to the next stage. Yeah. So just to give you an overview of what Fetch is, Fetch was set up in 2018. We have a token called Fed. We have a team of 78 people, mostly researchers and programmers. We have some people from DeepMind, Google DeepMind. We're headquartered in Cambridge in the UK. But overall, our team is all around the world. So we just to take you through some of the partnerships, collaborations, we work with quite well-known companies, which include Bosch, BMW, Daimler. We're part of Container X. We're part of some other organizations. You can see all our partners here. We were working with the Smart Dubai, trying to find smart city solutions. We also work with a lot of universities. So again, taking you back to where Fetch is and what Fetch does. So what we're building is the infrastructure uh, which enables you to organize complex tasks. And when I say complex tasks, these are tasks which at this point in time are difficult to be automated. But to do that, you need to have a network which is decentralized because you have multiple um, producers of software, multiple tasks which have multiple stakeholders. So the complexity comes from how they interact with each other. And if we really want to build a solution for the future, you need to be able to interoperate between all those solutions and different networks. And then we have, you know, and the main thing is if you want to take these solutions to the market, you need to make these a lot of them open source so that anybody can access it. And anybody can automate the process because in doing so they will also enable other automations to happen. So then you also need the tools which you need to build the automation with to carry out these complex manual tasks, which in certain cases are called, process automation. So we provide tools to do that. So three things that Fetch does, a little bit more technical, but just to give you more understanding perhaps. So we have a multi-agent system. So we're building a multi-agent system, which is a framework where multiple agents, software agents, can interact with each other. They can find each other, they can connect with each other, they can transact with each other. So that's the multi-agent system. We then have a decentralized machine learning. So you take models, you machine learning models, AI models, and you enable people to train them in a collective manner and take the benefit, the insights from those in a more democratized fashion. So we're building all the architecture, the infrastructure which goes with that. And to do all of that, then we have this big issue of how do you manage and share your data on such a decentralized system. So whereas we are proponents of decentralized systems, we also want to make sure that the data is secure and you don't get hacked. It's only used where it needs to be used or where it's allowed to be used. So we're building the tools which enable you to secure the data sharing. So what does it all mean? Well, just for those of you, some might not be too aware of blockchains. We are a Cosmos-based blockchain, and the reason why we are choosing Cosmos is because there's plenty of tools available. Why are we choosing blockchain is really the interesting question, because blockchain in itself is a multi-agent system where multiple stakeholders come together and they perform a task. And it enables the democratization, so the blockchain, but it's also an immutable kind of record. Now, although that's great, the problem with blockchains is they are inefficient because you have this whole decentralized solution. So it's never as good as a central solution, but also it's not it's not very fast. So we need to build tools where you can actually enable them to be scalable. So those are called the layer two solutions. So what we are doing is we're taking multi-agent systems and kind of converting them in some kind of a layer two solution so that we can achieve high throughput. And you can actually use multiple chains to do this. So just a quick kind of overview of how does the agents work in a layer two scaling solution. So you take some of the layer two solutions, you actually enable and the agents to do those tasks. You do aggregated signature verification off chain, so which then still puts the record on chain, but all the scaling tasks are done off chain. You also then do we convert that into an open economic framework, which is how do you find these agents, how do you find these tasks which you need to connect with. So the open economic framework helps with search and discovery, and then you have these bridges where the agents can take care of it for you, so you don't have to overcomplicate the issue. You can operate between many chains, so the interchain operability is also the key here. So a bit more overall view, how the autonomy and economy of things can be created. So if you look at the first layer, right at the bottom, you have blockchain. So the blockchain enables you to put records and put the transaction records on chain, so it's immutable, and it's like the orchestrator which manages, who is connecting with what and keeping a record of that. But on top of that, what you have is a layer two solution where you have these software agents. These software agents connect with each other and they transact with each other. They have to do search and discovery, they query, they connect, and they actually transact on a peer-to-peer fashion. So what we have is a ACN, the Agent Communication Network, which enables the agents to connect with each other, transact with each other, communicate with each other, and deliver the final transaction result, which is then put back onto the blockchain. So that's why we call this a layer two solution. So again, what is the point of all of this whole thing? So the point is to bring autonomy to piece of software, a piece of hardware, to yourself, to enable each and every stakeholder to interact with other stakeholders on their own behalf, on others' behalf, and then find this um, IoT devices which can connect and which can interact. I mean, we all have experienced this. There's a huge amount of data floating around. You've got loads of applications that you have to keep track of. You know, you have a calendar somewhere else. You've got you've got booking a parking system somewhere else, and you have to connect with all of these things. As we progress, these things are going to become more and more complex because everybody wants to use machine learning and AI. Everybody wants to connect with everything all the time. We get very irritated when things don't work. So how do we actually instead of going from a heavy top-down approach, how do we actually make agents uh, using from a bottom-up approach, build this new way where it's modular and the economy is digital, so nobody's going to sit there writing piece on a piece of paper. How do you then convert that you have new business models appearing? So in the way we do it is we're saying we have agents which can be made autonomous, given more autonomy by giving them more intelligence. Then you need a network connection. Now, this network doesn't just mean communication network, it also means economic network. How do you connect these multiple agents which are trying to do multiple things? And how do you connect them? How do you find them? So that's the network bit. But also you need information to come in, either in the form of insights or in the form of information which the agents need or the network needs to connect with you. And those are called the oracles. So oracles provide you information which either agents or network can't. So you bring outside information and feed that into the network. So what really we're trying to build is the architecture where you can deploy this machine learning, AI, new business models, autonomous business models, perhaps more efficient business models. So uh, some of the use cases, we will take some of them and um, we'll try and just explain one of these models. We have use cases in DeFi. Excuse this overlap. I think there is some issue with the screen size. So it's travel and mobility. We have some agents in DeFi space because as some of you who might or might not have used this DeFi space, the whole process flow is quite complicated. So you can use agents to reduce the complexity, make it very simple, make it autonomous. Uh, we did some travel and mobility proof of concepts, and we're kind of working on things like parking. We're also working on smart infrastructure. We're talking about decentralized delivery networks. So if you look at all the whole space of delivery, for example, there's always aggregators. If you look at the parking, there's always aggregators. What I mean by that is you have these entities which sit in the middle, which connect you and find you. For example, in the case of parking, you will have this app which sits in the middle, owned by some business, which connects you to where your car needs to park. So you can pay, you can connect, and you can book your car place. What we're doing is disintermediating completely. So you can apply this in the same way as you do to the parking network. You can connect directly to your parking space. You can connect directly to your charging space. You can connect directly to the restaurant who can make the delivery for you. So you don't need to go through a Uber Eats or something. And then you can connect again with more travel agents where you don't go through the intermediaries and you actually book travel directly with the supplier of the travel, like directly the hotel. The same applies in the infrastructure case, because if you think about your car and you're driving, you don't want to be going through intermediaries to connect to the signal. So we're trying to make sure that this whole ecosystem becomes a more decentralized space where people can interact without the aggregators, without the intermediaries, and connect directly to where they need to, but in a more intelligent fashion. So DeFi agents, I think this probably is less relevant, but let me take you through this. So For example, if you have an investment to make in a DeFi space, our agents can enable you to automate it, intelligently assess it, take in, put in. It's more like a management of your portfolio. So that's kind of that's kind of the DeFi agent. So I'll quickly skip through that to the next space, which is probably more relevant. I will skip these. Mobility is another example where we have done quite a lot of work where you actually take a delivery network and you convert that into an agent-based delivery network. What does that mean? What it means is you have an agent, you could be communicating with a cab, you could be communicating with a gig economy participant who wants to do delivery for you, and you connect with them directly rather than paying 20-25% in the middle to the aggregator. Now that's quite interesting in many ways, because one, as we have seen with the pandemic hitting, it's becoming more and more difficult to support that, the commission which sits in the middle, the 20-25%, but also it's more efficient because you're connecting directly to your supplier. So in mobility, in this case, we class this as mobility. It's a decentralized delivery network. This is a proof of concept we did a year ago. We did a parking example very recently. This was done in IAA Mobility. We did a whole proof of concept where your car could communicate with the parking space, find the parking space, pay for the parking space, and enable you to park. These are the things which we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years as the autonomous cars start becoming more popular. So as I'm conscious of the time, I will quickly go through this co-learn process. So if you think about all these agents need to have the intelligence from somewhere. So rather than saying the machine learning models should be built in a centralized way, we are making them completely decentralized, so anybody can participate. And the people who participate either with their data or with their knowledge of the model itself, or they want to build new models, they can all do that in a very collective fashion. They can invite people to participate in the same. And we did a case study with the COVID-19 data. So we took x-rays, we had multiple hospitals who trained the algorithm, and then the benefit could go to even the nations who haven't got the data or don't have the funds. You could enable them to kind of get the results out of this machine learning model. As we're running out of time, I'm just going to skip through a couple of more slides, and I think that's we did this in the co-learn fashion. We did this artwork, so the community created this art all together. So these collective learning models were built by the community. So just to wrap up, as we've run out of time, what can you do using the Fetch.ai tools? You can build these kind of decentralized models which anybody and everybody can benefit. You completely remove these intermediaries from it, and these solutions can be deployed by anybody. So that's really, I think the time is up, so I'm just going to stop here and perhaps go into the question and answer session.
Many thanks, Humayun.
Thank you.
For the incredible also examples you gave. Okay, so first question is, your company is offering an advanced phase of automation software agents acting on behalf of their owners, taking optimized decisions. How do you address ethical issues in the decision-making process?
We don't interfere in those issues. The whole point here is that it's a collective model. It's kind of a democracy. At the moment where you see these AI models being built by big corporates, you don't see full inclusion. Although there's all this talk about full inclusion, it's not full inclusion. Using this kind of system, what you're building is full inclusion. So it will, of course, have its own difficulties because it's a very democratized system, but it's a lot less problematic because you are enabling inclusion. You're enabling people to be ethical. I mean, I'm not saying everybody is, but if you enable the voting system, the unethicals could be voted out. So our job is to give a framework where people can build these models with inclusion, which is fully auditable, and the governments can come in and they can improve the models, they can reduce or remove things. Our job is to really create that framework which enables you to democratize this.
And what would be the best sector to use the applications that you have? Because it can be energy, transportation, financial. So what would be the sector that could be that could use the applications in the most helpful way?
Well, it's like saying, well, where can you use AI? You can use machine learning and AI in any sector. Where can you use automation? It could be in any sector. But if we look at more kind of a focused approach, where is it easiest to kind of deploy today is where you can see multiple parties who are trying to work together but find it very difficult because of different systems. They can't work together. For example, you have thousands of hospitals across the country, across the continent, maybe across the world, who want to perhaps collaborate on learning from each other a lot quicker. These kind of solutions can work quite well there. You can also look at some kind of these delivery networks we were talking about in the gig economy. To manage the gig economy in the most efficient way, it's very difficult. So you can see applications there. You'll always find it a bit more difficult where you have these incumbents, which are big, large incumbents, which actually make a lot of financial return by having this non-democratized system. So it will always be more difficult to kind of tap into those. However, if it's a disparate system, for example, supply chain is another good example. It's a disparate system. People want to work together, but they can't. This would apply the best in those kind of circumstances.
Okay, we have 2 minutes remaining. We have one question. How do you address, and this is something that was repeated across the different sessions today. How do you address the problems of bias and security while using the AI model?
That's a perfect question, and that's exactly my point. That the bias, the inclusion, which is missing. This, if we start building these collective models, the bias comes from the participants, right? So if you have a much better spread of participants and you include the right participants in the system, the bias kind of automatically starts to disappear, because now you have made sure that everybody is participating in this group, and you don't have restrictions on people who can't participate, because as long as the data is there, as long as you're providing the data, you should be allowed to participate in building of these models. So it actually, in a very principled kind of way, gets rid of that bias. And then comes the data security. So if you look at I think this in the slide I was explaining to you the tools. We build cryptography tools to ensure that when you're training the models, your data is secure, with GDPR compliant or any other data restriction compliant. You don't actually share your data. You don't put the data on any other database. You keep your own data, you secure it with the cryptography tools that we have, and then you still train the machine learning model. So it does take care of those two things, although it's in a much more basic, and you have to build this in right from the beginning. So
amazing. Unfortunately, our time's up. But thank you so much for joining us, Humayun, and for sharing your insights and the great work that you are doing at Fetch.ai.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for letting me in. Thanks.